Hey there, welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Yeah, let's go. Happy Liberation Day. Does this mean we have a new holiday? Does this mean my kids got like a half day of school? Because they'll take it for any old excuse. By the way, Liberation Day, in reference to the big headline of the day, a bunch of Trump tariffs, reciprocal tariffs, are scheduled to take effect. We are going to be going to Donald Trump when he speaks live on this. You know, he speaks on an almost daily basis, and we almost never go live to it, just to let you know what an important day this might be, because this is something actually happening. This isn't proposed cuts. This isn't the announcement of someone being appointed to some job. This isn't a, oops, we got to talk about the signal leak. This is actual things that affect you, your business, your pocketbook, and it'll be interesting to see if this shakes out. If this, if these tariffs stick around, it's not going to be a net positive for anybody. But here's the trick. When we all throw tariffs on each other, we're in a contest to see which economy can hold its breath underwater the longest. And I would bet on America over any other economy in a tariff war, because I think that's a pretty damn good metaphor. Can we hold our breath, economically speaking, longer than a Canada, longer than a Brazil or a South Korea or any of these other unfair trade deals? You know, the one that I might have the most concern about is the super totalitarian ones, because the will of the people doesn't have to break. It would have to be the will of the Communist Politburo that breaks. But as far as who could tolerate more suffering, well, we're probably going to suffer the least out of this. It's going to be the people who've had unfair trade deals, and that's the interesting context you constantly have to remind yourself of, is that for people who have been getting preferential treatment for decades, getting equal treatment feels like discrimination. Now, there are some, look, I am a free trade guy, but we don't have free trade as one of the options right now. Either we do the reciprocal tariffs or we keep the unbalanced trade deals that we have going on right now. And so if this is just a mechanism to get us to a more free and fair trade, then this, in hindsight, will look like a genius move that, of course it worked. But the longer this goes on, the more negative effects it could have on the economy. And so this might end up being something that Trump has to withdraw from because it becomes politically unpopular. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to have enough countries that go along and admit it and make some changes, that we'll be able to navigate half of this. We'll be able to resource the other half of it, or make some adjustments, or move the manufacturing back over here. And I don't think in the long run, like in a year from now, all the people say this is going to crash the economy, we're headed for a recession, we're headed for a collapse, they'll be on to the next story. I want to remind you what they were saying. When I say they, I mean the people that are acting like tariffs are the worst thing in the world now and it's going to ruin your life. What were they saying a year ago about tariffs? Well, we don't have to wonder. I have access to the internet. So do you. I am a very petty person with a long memory and kind of have revenge mind. And I also have the Audiotron 3000. Let's go back to last year. This is Janet Yellen. This is her in an interview in her capacity as the Secretary of Treasury under Joe Biden, talking about tariffs and tariffs that he was putting on. I guess these were magic tariffs that don't raise prices on anyone.
As you have seen, there have been some experts, some groups, the National Retail Federation among them, who've expressed concerns that it will be U.S. consumers who eventually end up paying for these tariffs. As you know, polling shows that rising prices are voters' biggest concern right now. So I'd ask you to speak directly to them. Will American consumers bear the cost of these tariffs?
I don't believe that American consumers will see any meaningful increase in the prices that they face.
As you have seen, there have been...
Yeah, there it goes. It's just repeating because it's on Twitter. So, yeah, look at the headlines you're seeing now, though. The headlines right now are warning about the catastrophic consequences of this tariff war that Donald Trump's putting on our allies. And another reminder here, not only were they saying the opposite about tariffs a year ago, just remember, what else were they saying a year ago? What was their big story a year ago? What could you not get away from 1 year ago as far as the headlines go? Because if you only go back 1 year and you go review the headlines, and you come back and this, like just 1 year later, they're this far off. What makes you think they're right about the headlines today? Just as a reminder, this is the headlines from a year ago, like to the month.
Start your tape right now, because I'm about to tell you the truth. And F you if you can't handle the truth. This version of Biden is the best Biden ever.
Remember they were saying this?
I think he's better than he's ever been.
Sharp as a tack.
President Biden has a photographic memory.
Sure he
His
does.
understanding and mastery of a complicated geopolitical situation, remarkable.
He is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
I was sitting, 2 feet from him across the table, and he was, intense.
Have trouble walking sometimes?
Okay,
Yeah,
so
did
this is
FDR.
a 3-minute long montage just to let you know how ridiculous do these headlines sound just a year out. Here is Jesse Waters from his Fox News show last night talking about while they were telling you this guy's sharp as a tack, smartest guy in the room, photographic memory. What's the truth that we're learning now that the people that were around him in his orbit have no negative consequences for sharing the stories? Ask Jesse Waters from last night.
Every Democrat in D.C. has a story about Biden, and now they're all coming out. After the debate, Joe Biden was at a fundraiser at New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy's house, but he didn't know where to go. So his staff put fluorescent tape on the floor to guide Joe Biden around the room, but he was still confused.
Remember, while they were telling you he's sharp as a tack, smartest guy in the room, photographic memory, the reality was not just a little off. It wasn't like 45 degrees off. It was 180 degrees from this truth. The guy couldn't even remember where to go. Even if you put fluorescent floor tape in front of him, he would still get confused. So what makes you think they're right about the impact of the tariffs and what that's going to look like a year from now? We should come back and revisit that. Coming up next, Evan Sayet, author, comedian, satirist, is going to make a little more sense of that mindset and also filter through what was the point of Senator Cory Booker's record-breaking Senate speech last night. You'll hear about it next on The James Show. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. All right, basketball fans, I know you're in absolute heaven right now. We're marching on to the final 4 teams of the Big March tournament. We have basketball in the pros. They're walking right up to the playoffs, and you can add a little bit more fun to the basketball you're already watching with the Prize Picks app. James Parker here for Prize Picks. I'm telling you, I think I'm onto something when you go and you look at the pro basketball league and you go to the one stat line that says points, rebounds, plus assists, and you have to add them all together to get like the big number. There's not a name for it. I just call it the big number because it's almost like they have to get 3 things correct. They have to beat 3 statistics to get there, and it's almost like a cheat code when you can push their face and see how they did in the last 5 games compared to what the more or less statistic was. So go check that out. If you're looking for like a little secret of the pros here, this is kind of the things I'm just sharing with what I figure out. And so if you want to go see like Anthony Davis, what his number is, and then pick more or less, I'm actually going to go more on him in the next game. So go check it out. That's all it takes. You make a lineup of 2 to 6 players just like that. You can win up to 1,000 times your money. And you can do it on America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with 10 million active users using our promo code and get $50 on the house to play with. Download it. Use promo code WBAP. You hear that? Promo code WBAP, the name of this station. And you get $50 to play with your first $5 game. So check it out. Prize Picks. Run your game. Well, hey there. Welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. I am your host, James Parker. And with all the juxtapositions going on, I hear people constantly saying, I don't understand. 5 years ago, they all loved the Tesla, and now they're setting them on fire. How do they do that? How do they just change on a dime like that? How do they even go through this transformation without admitting, well, hey, I must have been wrong before. Maybe I should reevaluate my worldview. The guy who can explain this better than anyone else, and if you read 2 of his books, you'll notice I use his verbiage almost every episode on the James Show. It's the great Evan Sayet. Welcome back, Evan. Now, Evan, you with me?
I am.
Okay, so let's just go ahead and start with that. We've all noticed that Elon Musk went from being a hero, a saint, to Jesus Christ, a Thomas Edison of the left, to now literally Hitler. And now, how can you make this change? Like in 1984, when they said we're at war with East Asia, then they just changed it, we're at war with Eurasia, and everyone was just cool with it and just pretended like they didn't know what the truth was 10 years ago. How does this play out in the real world with our neighbors?
Well, because the political left has no values. It's all about who is with them at any given moment. And I'm surprised you didn't make the bigger leap, which is to Donald Trump, who they loved for the first 70 years. I mean, this is a guy who Hillary Clinton was at his wedding. This is a guy who Hollywood so adored that if you wanted a cameo of a gracious billionaire, this was the go-to guy. This was a guy who NBC television for a decade gave his own television show. Now, if this was Adolf Hitler, either we need to reject the political left because they're willing to deal with Hitler until he runs for office, or he wasn't really Hitler at any point along the way. What changed was he became a threat to them. And it's the same thing with Elon. There's nothing that's different about the man from the days that they adored him to today, except now they see him as a threat.
Well, I also like the Elon example because it has the fact that we need to have electric cars to save the planet to burning electric cars. It's like, well, were you ever about saving the planet? It sounds like you were more interested in the politics behind it.
And then go back to the pandemic where we couldn't even meet one other person. We couldn't go and even if we socially distanced, we couldn't go to church. But the one exemption was if you're lighting a city on fire.
Well, oh, yeah, or you're going to George Floyd's funeral. You could go to that one.
Right, you can go to George Floyd's funeral. You can go to a protest. You could take over a city. You could do any of these things. You just couldn't kiss grandma goodbye in the hospital.
Another thing that made me think of you yesterday, Evan, was Cory Booker was breaking the record for the longest speech on the Senate floor. And my first question is, what is he filibustering? And I couldn't find an answer because there wasn't an answer. He just wanted to break the record for the longest speech. He wasn't doing it to stop any piece of legislation or whatever. And I thought that so perfectly just encapsulated a section of Team Blue where it's just all one big virtue signal.
Indeed. And if you noticed, I mean, obviously I didn't watch the entire 20 hours.
No one did.
Certainly no one did, including anybody in the Senate. But I saw enough and I read enough, and I even I went to my chat GPT and asked, and not once did he say what Democrats would do. It was all negative about, you have to worry about the threat to democracy. You have to worry about the Nazis, the fascists. You have to worry about Donald Trump. But at no point did he say, and here's our alternative. And one of the things that I point out, I believe in every book I've written, is that Democrats do not argue in the affirmative. They don't tell you what they're going to do, what their policy is, how it works, where it has worked in the past. It's all ignore everything that we've done to your cities, ignore everything we've done to your families, ignore everything we've done to the border, ignore everything we've done in the schools, because, hey, look over there. It's a Nazi. The only argument the left has, because they, as you know, my thesis, which is that they don't believe in anything. They are indiscriminate. And because they are indiscriminate, they don't have anything to affirm. They can't argue in the affirmative because if nothing's better than anything else, there is nothing to affirm. They always have to run in the negative.
So apply that same logic on how these people who stand for women's rights and LGBTQ or whatever rights and free speech and you don't have to wear a headscarf. How are these people on the side of the Palestinians and not the Israeli state that allows them all the full complement of human rights for women and the letter people and the things they say they stand for? They side against them in the Israel-Gaza conflict.
Right. Well, anytime you're talking about a revolution, you have to recognize that there are going to be multiple forces who join together to destroy what is, even though they have a very different plan for what to build upon the rubble. And so when you see these people who claim to be liberal, who claim to, my favorite is Queers for Palestine. What could queers and Palestine possibly have in common? And the answer is they both want to see the destruction of Western civilization to replace it with the utopia of their imagination. Now, the utopias they imagine are very, very, very different. But until they can destroy what is, they can't get to the utopia of their imagination. So the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And so why? But then there are others who don't think that deeply, who simply recognize that if nothing is better than anything else, then the failure of the Palestinians to build a working society, the failure of the Palestinians to build a civilization, there's only two possibilities. It's because there's something wrong with Islam. But if you're not allowed to believe there's anything wrong with Islam, then the only possibility is that not only are they oppressed, but given the degree of their failure, they must be exceptionally oppressed.
All right. Good news. You told me to check out your latest work on your Substack. And, I'm kind of hesitant to go to people's Substack because usually there's a paywall. Yours was free.
Yeah, I'm not very smart that way.
All right. Round of applause for free Substacks.
That doesn't mean that they can't get a paid subscription, and a good number of my fans have, recognizing that it's sort of a way to contribute. But I also want to get the word out there, and so as long as I can, I will continue to keep it free.
All right. His latest work on the Say It Substack, sayit.substack.com. You were doing the classic explanation on how Jewish people can still vote Democrat.
Right. And the answer is simple but not short, and I'm sure we don't have a lot of time
We
left.
got like 30 seconds.
Oh, gee whiz. Well, to be called a Jew, even to call yourself a Jew.
You know what? Hang on. You want to just go into the next segment?
Yeah, sure. Let's do that.
All right. I don't have anything else planned. I was going to say something funny about the... In fact, when we get done with Evan Say It, we'll talk about the Texas senators considering $2.5 billion for the film industry. In fact, I'll ask him about that too before I ask you. Should Texas taxpayers subsidize an industry that absolutely hates you? More with Evan Say It next on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey, welcome back to the James Show. I'm your host, James Parker, on News Talk 820 WBAP. It's Liberation Day. I'm glad they didn't cancel my kid's school, although it might rain pretty hard, so maybe they're working on canceling it for tomorrow. That's another complaint for another day. We continue with one of my favorite guests, the great Evan Sayet, evansayet.com, and you can also find his Substack, sayet.substack.com. All right, so when I so rudely cut you off with commercials there, we were just getting into the explanation on how Jewish people can still support the Democrats. And, you know, you had this theory going and you explained it in your books in the past, and it was way before October 7th happened. And one of the nice things about the unified field theory of liberalism is once you digest that and understand it, you're not surprised that even after October 7th, the position these people can take.
Oh, indeed. I mean, it's been close to 20 years since I gave the original speech that led to it being called the unified theory of liberalism. And not once in all those years have I had to come up with an ad hoc explanation because the liberals or the leftists surprised me. It truly is. You're right. I'm right in that once you understand what I say in that speech or in the first book, The Kindergarten of Eden, you know everything you need to know to not only understand, but anticipate what the policies of the left is going to be.
Well, as a Jewish person yourself, how do you explain how so many people in your religion could possibly support the party that is on the side of the terrorist against you?
Yeah, the first thing you have to understand is that to be called a Jew, and I mean even to call yourself a Jew, you exit the voting booth and ABC News says we're taking an exit poll. Who'd you vote for? Okay, and how would you describe yourself? To be called a Jew is different than any other religion that's out there. Because in order to be called a Christian, you have to believe something. You have to believe that Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior. If you believe that, you're a Christian. And if you don't believe that, you're not a Christian. You wouldn't even call yourself a Christian. In order to be a Muslim, you have to believe something. You have to believe that the Quran is the final testament of God and Muhammad is perfect messenger. If you believe that, you're a Muslim. And if you don't believe that, you're not a Muslim. But to be called a Jew, you don't have to believe anything. All you have to do is be born to a Jewish mother. And therefore, to expect somebody who is in no way Jewish except by something they had no control over, their birth, to be moral or immoral or to be anything at all would be to believe that our policies are born into us and that we don't have free will, which I don't think there's either of us on this call or any of your listeners who believe that. Right? In fact, the way you know this is true is there are people who call themselves secular Jews. There's nobody who would call themselves a secular Christian because that's oxymoronic.
Right.
If you're secular, you're not a Christian. There are no secular Muslims. It's oxymoronic. And so only the Jewish faith, because we're not only a religion, but we're a culture and we're a nation. And so once you start to get into Jews who are actually Jews by choice and practice, all right, there's actually a direct horizontal diagonal line that the more Jewish you are by faith and practice, the more likely you are to reject the immorality of the Democrat Party. And so the Reform Jewish community, which is barely Jewish, as the name suggests, reform, they seek to reform Scripture to fit their politics, as opposed to changing their politics to reforming their politics to fit Scripture. But as you go from the Reform community to the conservative Jewish community to the Orthodox Jewish community, the non-Jewish Jews vote 100% Democrat. The Reform Jews vote 99% Democrat. Conservatives almost always for Republicans, and Orthodox Jews entirely Republican. So it's not Jews who vote Democrat, it's non-believing Jews who do.
Well, also the fact that it's called the unified field theory of liberalism is because it is so universal here, because you could just take that one stance, the Israel stance, and you have on college campuses here at UT Dallas, I'm sure there were some Jewish students who were pro-Palestinian. It's like, excuse me, they kind of want to kill you. But then you also had some gay students there. They kind of want to kill you. And then you had some women students there. It's like, they kind of want to put you in a headscarf and make you property of a husband. They're that it just keeps repeating itself over and over. And you saw it yesterday where Cory Booker's out there breaking the record for the longest filibuster or longest speech. The previous longest speech was by a Democrat in the 50s when he was filibustering the Civil Rights Act. That was by one person. The longest filibuster by multiple people, 74 days, that was in 1964 with the next Civil Rights Act, also done by a Democrat. And so when you see that these people can go and support these institutions that have historically seek to destroy them, it almost is a pattern you expect at this point.
Oh, indeed. And one of the questions you have to ask yourself is why Israel, of all places, this tiny little liberal democracy? We're talking about a place not only with freedom of speech for all, including Muslims, and freedom of assembly, but we're talking about gay pride parades in every major city. Mm-hmm. We're talking about a nation that had a woman prime minister back in the 1960s, surrounded by the most misogynistic, homophobic, xenophobic, and James, I do believe even a little bit anti-Semitic.
Yeah, we saw that coming.
Okay. and so why, of all the nations in the world, is this the one that they seek to strangle to death economically through boycott, sanctions, and divestment? They don't say that about any other nation. Why this one? And the answer is, the greater the evil, the Palestinian evil, the more the Democrat, the liberal, has to champion it. Because if they're not bad, then they must have been provoked. And given the horrors that have been provoked, well, the provocations must have been unparalleled. This is why they call the Jews genocidal, when in fact it's Hamas that has genocide written into their constitution.
All right, he's the great Evan Sayet. His book is The Kindergarten of Eden. He has several, but that's the one you start with. If you're not ready to buy the book, send me an email or a message on Facebook, and I'll give you a link to the speech that he mentioned. And after you watch that 40-minute speech, you'll probably want the book. So just send me an email, james@wbap.com, or reach out on Facebook. Thank you very much, Evan.
Of course, James. Good talking to you.
Thank you. Coming up next, RT Trevino from the Crude Truth Podcast. We're going to talk about what's going on with the oil patch. Drill, baby, drill. Are we doing that yet? Find out next on The James Show. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, hello, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. I am your host, James Parker. Let's stop down and take a look at the most important commodity in the great Lone Star State. We're talking about black gold. It's oil. RT Trevino's on from The Crude Truth. It's a podcast from the oil patch, and he's also with Pecos Country Energy. And I haven't heard anything about oil out of the headlines, so I guess things are going pretty good.
Oh, James, we can't complain as far as we go here in Texas. Even though the rig count has been flat for a while, we are still staying steady and drill, baby, drill here in the Lone Star State. We could always use more oil, and that's not just because of us oil and gas producers, but that's because of the continued population growth in the great state of Texas, and we're going to have to provide that energy and that summer AC for all these transplants from other states.
So what has changed so far? We're now 2 months into the Trump 2.0. What's different?
Right now the feeling is really what's different. Again, like I said, the rig count has not gone up. The price of oil has been pretty good, still at $70 today. We're back up at over 70. The thing that really has changed for the positive is the price of gasoline. We're at 3-year lows, and I don't think that's a coincidence that we get a new administration and we're now down lower than we were, basically where we were 3 years ago, which was almost when President Trump was in office last. So that, to me, is the best thing that's changed. But also during this time, even though the rig count has stayed steady, we're getting more efficient in producing oil, which actually allows us here in Texas right now to help us be the number one producer, not only in America, but the world. That right now, the United States is still the number one producer at 14 million barrels of oil a day.
I have heard that from people in the oil patch on a regular basis for the last 20 years. And I try to understand this. It feels like in agriculture, how we used to get, X number of bushels from an acre of corn, and now we can get like 30 times that from the same acre of corn. And is that what's going on in the oil patch? Fracking, y'all just, I don't know, getting better at the fluid or I don't know what you're doing, but that kind of has the same feeling to it.
Yes, absolutely. With the creation of fracking and the shale boom of the early 2000s, what we're seeing now are these wells that are drilled deeper and further and have larger fracks. And we're even doing, if you can imagine, a horseshoe in some of these, where it's just a U underneath the earth. So these wells are a lot bigger, which means they're producing. So for an easy number just to say, what we may be producing now from 2 wells is what we would be producing from 3 wells maybe 5 or 10 years ago.
Just 5 or 10 years ago.
Easy comparison. Yeah, just an easy comparison there.
Well, are we at the point now where we can go back and some of these wells that were drilled, 80 years ago, we can go redo it and use the new technology and get more out of what we used to think was dry?
Well, with new technology, we can go into these older wells and extract the oil that we didn't think was actually possible to extract.
That's what I'm talking
due to
about.
new technologies. And that is something that we're working on. And even at the state level, we're working on ways to make it more incentivizing for operators like Pecos to go in and purchase these older leases to actually go in and do the work. But there's just so much work to do along with plugging these older wells that we take on that liability. So we're working with the with the Texas state and Congress to really see if there's a way to go back into them for basically a financial incentive. But yes, short answer is yes. There are ways to go in to maybe take a well that's producing 5 barrels, and in a best case scenario, maybe bring it up to 20 for a year or 2. But usually you're looking at maybe, 7 to 8 barrels a day rather than 5 in most cases. But there are ways to do that. And also there's additional tiers of oil in some of these deeper formations that we've been producing that we can go extract that oil from as well.
All right, I'm going to ask you something a little off topic here. We talk about barrels of oils, and that's based on the big old drum of oil that was actually like a big metal cylinder container. And when I was a kid, we used to get those old drums and race the horses around it in a cloverleaf pattern or whatever. Is that what y'all still use these days? Do y'all ever still use the barrels, or are they plastic now or made out of something else? Like, what does an oil barrel physically look like now?
Yes. Well, physically, the mental picture is still there. Everybody thinks of the 55-gallon drums. A barrel of oil is actually 44 gallons. And really, this day and age, it's all shipped via tanker truck. and pipelines. So the actual physical days of barrels of oil in some ways are gone, but we still count and sell our oil based off the barrel. And right now, a base of West Texas Intermediate crude, a barrel of oil is a little over $70 today.
So what do cowgirls race around in a cloverleaf pattern these days? If not, we don't have any more old barrels. RT Trevino, Crude Truth Podcast. What you got coming up on your next episode?
Yes, Phil, thank you so much for asking. We've got some great individuals. I've got on coming up a wonderful person named Trey Cortez, who is actually one of the best geologists there is in the state of Texas, works for Burnett Oil, one of the longest running family offices there is. I also have coming on a wonderful lady named Lisa Carmen Wang that has an entire empire that she's built. And check it out. It's called the Bad Bitch Empire. And she's definitely doing things outside the norm in her neck of the woods.
All right. Well, thank you very much, RT Trevino from the Crude Truth Podcast. Coming up next, I'm going to ask you, should taxpayers here in Texas be subsidizing any industry, much less Hollywood? Because Texas senators are considering not a few bucks, $2.5 billion for the film industry from your back pocket. Are you comfortable with that? You like subsidizing an industry that pretty much hates you? 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. That's next on The James Show. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. You know, people, some guy over here on X is watching the live stream, and he commented that Dallas needs to be liberated from crackhead Crockett. Now, listen, we haven't even brought her up today. Why are you taking shots at her? And that there's no evidence that she has ever used crack. She doesn't act like a crackhead. It just kind of has a nice alliteration to you. So that nickname's not going to work. We can do better. And in fact, do I have a Jasmine Crockett update for today? No, she's not going to. Oh, wait. Okay, no, I don't. That was left over from yesterday, and I'm not going to get to it. But here's what I am going to get to. We are so terrible in Texas about taking the awful ideas that are tried elsewhere in this country, and after they've proven to be huge, embarrassing failures, we're like, we should try that here. And the one that's on the plate today, $2.5 billion for the movie industry in subsidies. $2.5 billion in taxpayer dollars to get Hollywood to come make their movies here. Okay, hang on. Breaking news happening right now. Donald Trump is coming up to the podium. This is Liberation Day, and we are expecting him to make some public statements on the new reciprocal tariffs that have gone into effect today. So he's live. He's walking up. He's waving at people. And as soon as he gets in front of a microphone and starts talking, we'll go to that live, which appears to be about now. You want to just go ahead and try this now? Let's see. He probably has to introduce, say hi to a lot of people. But if he gets to it, we'll stick with it. Go, Garrett. All right, we're going to cut into this. This is Donald Trump live on what's now Liberation Day, announcing the implementation of reciprocal tariffs. I'll let you know what I think about the statements you just heard next. But what do you think? 800-288-9227. Generally speaking, do you support this? Do you think this is good for the economy? Or do you think he's making a horrible mistake? 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, hey there. Welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. You just heard history in the making. Donald Trump, President Trump goes out there and makes his case for Liberation Day, the institution of reciprocal tariffs on so many of our trade partners that have had an imbalance thus far. Now, ideally, me as a evil free market capitalist pig, and I say that very much tongue in cheek, my ideal situation would be free trade, very low, if tariffs at all. I'm talking like 1 or 2% across the board. But that's not what's on the table. What we have going right now is we have low tariffs for our products, but there's many nations out there that have high tariffs on our products. So we don't have an even playing field. We don't have fair trade. We don't have free trade. And so this is a classic negotiating tactic that you'll read in almost any business book, including Art of the Deal. If you ever read that, he talks about one of the great negotiation techniques in business history is you take a situation that the guy you want to negotiate with is where he's comfortable in it, you make it uncomfortable, and then you provide him that solution. And that's not something that is endemic to Donald Trump or he made up. He's sort of crib noting the classic book from Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People, where he talks about how to make business deals, how to make friends, how to network, all that stuff. Well, one of the chapters in there was how he made so many great deals happen, Carnegie, the original guy. And so you see Donald Trump sort of echoing, it's just a classic business strategy. If you're a fan of football, it's like running it up the middle. This is the most normal thing in the world. And so we don't have the ideal of free and fair trade. What we have is a guy that's trying to make some pain points to get some people to come to the table and change the playing field that right now is unfair to American markets. Now, it's one thing when we're the hyperpower of the world and we have a bunch of third world countries that we're trying to bring along. We can't exactly squeeze all these people. But this has been the regime and sort of the expected playing rules since World War II. And all of these countries aren't little primitive backward third world hellholes anymore. And I don't mean that as an insult. I mean that as a positive. I mean that as a compliment. A lot of countries have made a lot of progress. They're no longer backwards. They no longer need training wheels on their Schwinn. They don't need to sit at a high chair in the table. They can sit in a regular chair with the big boys at the big table. And it's time for us to stop being so generous with the working Americans out here that a lot of people are getting an unfair deal. Now, on the long term, if all these tariffs stay in place and nothing changes in a year, we're not going to be very happy with it. But the real question is, can our economy withstand these new barriers, these new protections, these new hurdles to trade and last longer and be more robust than the people on the other side of the trading block? And that's the real question. The perfect metaphor for this is, can the American economy hold its breath longer than these other countries? And so what you just missed right as we went to commercial there, we were listening to him live. He pulled up this chart and it was huge. It's like 4 feet tall. And it was listing out all these countries and what they tariff our products versus what we're going to tariff their products. And China has like a 90% tariff on American products. And, he was going through like Denmark and Bangladesh. And no, it's Vietnam that has a 90% tariff on all our products. And so starting tomorrow, we're going to be tariffing their products at just half. It's not even really reciprocal. They're still getting a pretty sweetheart deal. The question is, do you think this is going to work, or do you think this is going to hurt more than it helps? 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Christine in Frisco, what do you think about Liberation Day and the Trump tariffs?
Hi, James. Thanks for taking my call.
Hi, Christine.
I'm in full support. I think that it is going to hurt us in the beginning, but long term, it is necessary for us to make sure that we are completely independent. And I just wish that we would have maybe staggered it in, though. That's my only fear. We kind of came in brash, but I think that was Trump's strategy to show that, hey, this is what we're coming in for, and perhaps, like you said, negotiate it down, or have an exit strategy, or have something, in place. That's my only fear, is that, we just kind of came in really big.
Well, a year from now, how do you think you'll feel about it, Christine?
I think it's going to hurt. I think 6 months to a year, there's going to be some pain. I think after that, though, once we have a lot of our plants up and running, we kind of get used to the product. And I think also the countries start to respond a little differently to us, I think we'll be in a better place.
Yeah, I think part of me thinks this could all be done in a month, because after the tariffs actually go into place and goods start to have the charge on them and decisions, change on who's doing business with who, this isn't going to hurt just like the everyday people here in America or the lowest of the low in these other countries. It's going to hurt the oligarchs, the term that's been way overused as of late, but it's going to hurt the people at the top who own these businesses, the ones who are doing the trades, the one who have the big, international corporations at their behest. And they're going to lean on their leaders to get rid of this, because this isn't going to be good for really anybody economically. So there's a small part of me that thinks this could all be resolved in like a month, Christine.
I don't know. That's very optimistic. A month. I'm not sure of month, but I do think that we're going to see, as long as we have an aligning plan together, a strategy where we're going to really start producing more American product. I think that, we might leave those tariffs in. I think we might just become a stronger nation overall. I don't know. I don't know if it'll be resolved in a month, but I think that we have to wait and see. I don't like tariffs. I like free trade. I land where you land, James, but
that's not on the table, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, no, and this is necessary, and there is a security concern. We can't be relying on other countries. We're relying on them way too much, and I am very, very pleased with Trump announcing the tariff. Like I said, I just wish that we kind of stair-stepped it, but we'll see.
Well, you sound awfully young to be so in-depth in economics. You sound like a younger James. Thank you, Christine. I appreciate that.
Bye.
Bye. All right, your thoughts. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Trump announces reciprocal tariffs for Liberation Day. Will this help more than it hurts? What do you think we're going to say about this in a year's time? 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, hey there. Welcome to the James Show. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Liberation Day is now officially underway. Donald Trump came out, and he's still giving live remarks here. Now he's to the point where we're answering questions, and he's announcing the tariffs, what they're going to be, and making it official. I was just listening on the break there. A new piece of information he just added while you were listening to some very important messages there. Is that his next big plan for the economy? Like, what are you going to do next? He says he's going to do the largest tax cut in history. Okay. What do you think? Do you think this is going to work? Do you think this is going to blow up in his face? And I think we're not going to know today, tomorrow, a week from now, a month from now. But I think a year from now, we're going to look back on this and either be really happy or really upset. But I think this is all going to get resolved within a matter of months, and we're not going to talk about this again. We'll probably forget it ever happened. But what do you think? 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. This is Tate in Fort Worth. What do you think about the Trump tariff plan?
Well, it's good, and I think it will work because it worked before, but there's something that I don't think anybody's thinking about, or it doesn't get reported. When all the manufacturing moved overseas, it moved overseas because cost of doing it was too high. Labor was too high. What they were paying the people got out of hand, and they couldn't do it and couldn't make a living. There's numbers of companies right here in Texas that have literally locked the doors or moved to another state because cost of paying employees to do it kept going up.
Right.
And in the automotive world, which is what I'm in, we had some killer connecting rods. They were costing around $1,200. Everybody said that was too high. Now that stuff has been taken overseas and cloned, they've come back and they're selling for half price, $475 to $525. And they work, but they're not the same thing. And it's all the way through the market. And something that I think caught some manufacturers by surprise is one piston company moved to Mexico because they could get it done cheaper, lost a lot of employees in the States, and they wanted to bring the stuff back to Texas, and they can't bring their equipment back. And there's a company in the gun world that I tried to find a gun on, so I called the manufacturer. They had taken it to one of the southern countries, and they said, well, those people just don't get in a hurry and they just don't work that fast. So we only get so many guns produced. And I said, well, why don't you bring it back? And he said, we can't bring our equipment back. We can't bring our technology back.
All right, Tate, in a year from now, over in Fort Worth, are you going to be loving this or regretting this?
I don't think it's really going to affect us down here. If the gas prices go down and everything goes down, I think where it's going to be the big effect is going to be in the big unions, the big manufacturing. He's talking about building ships here. He's talking about building all the stuff here. All the people that go to work to build the foundries, to build the shipyards and all that, what happens to them once that's done? Because they might not turn into the employees that go to work in building the ships. But
I'm sensing cautious optimism here, Tate. You think that's a fair description?
Yeah. I mean, Trump made it work once. I'm for Trump, but I just see that if minimum wage goes up $2, then everybody above that says we're worth more than $2.
I hear what you're
saying. All that keeps happening.
Yeah.
That's why the people went overseas.
All right.
The unions were
Tate, I got to run.
In.
I got to give up the show to get you a news update. But thank you very much. That was Tate in Fort Worth. What do you think? Because really the question isn't like, do you think it's going to crash the economy immediately or help immediately? How do you think we're going to feel about this in 6 months to a year? 800-288-9227. It's Liberation Day. Trump has announced new reciprocal tariffs that are about to go into effect any second now. And we're just putting on our professor hats and seeing what you think. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. I'm your host, James Parker. Let's go. Welcome to Liberation Day. President Trump just gave live remarks on some new reciprocal tariffs that are going to go into effect in a mere matter of hours. And the discussion immediately turns, and I like this discussion. This is an intelligent discussion, one that actually affects your pocketbook, one that is going to either dissipate and go away in a month because it worked so well, or it could be catastrophic and something that's hanging around our neck a year from now. You know, the consequences of today's story are pretty huge. Now, a lot of people are focusing on the manufacturing aspect. A lot of people are focusing on, you know, this is a way to target people who are not treating us fairly. But I also believe that so many of the issues that we're having in today's society at the root cause has an economic solution. And when you look at the sort of protectionism or the greasing of the wheels or the patting on the back or the cronyism or the unfair trade, I think tariffs are half of the issue. The other half is subsidies. You know, it's the push and the pull. And either you're going to push away imports or you're going to subsidize and pull away local preferred industries. And I think we're seeing half of that tug of war being had out with this new tariff system. But let's not forget the subsidy system, because there's two ways countries protect their native industries or punish foreign industries, and that's tariffs and subsidies. And with all of these, you don't just take in the initial cost as it is on paper. There is secondary effects that are a lot of times are harder to measure, if not immeasurable. And I think one of the greatest examples of that, because I was going to talk about this anyway, even if Trump didn't come out live, this is the same thing we were going to talk about with the subsidies that are being proposed for the movie industry here in Texas. It's not a good thing, economically speaking, to have the government going out there picking winners and losers. And so part of my concern as a free market capitalist pig is that. But we don't have my ideal of free trade. Let me just give you an example of how, you know, seemingly well-intended protectionist policies can have huge negative consequences to the rest of us. And I think the most obvious one that you see in your everyday life is sugar. Sugar? No one's talking about sugar, James. Well, stick with me here. If you go to the store and you buy sugar, here in America, it's about 38 cents a pound. Pretty damn cheap, isn't it? So if you go out and you buy a 5-pound bag of sugar, what are we looking at? Like $2? Ooh. Now, everywhere else on planet Earth, it's about half that price. So a 5-pound bag of sugar, instead of being $2, it's $1 everywhere else. Okay, well, that's not going to make any big dent in your grocery budget. But if you're a candy manufacturer or you're some other food maker or you make sodas, then that is a huge deal. Then the primary ingredient, your number one ingredient, doubles in cost. And so when you hear people tomorrow and the next day and in months in the future say, how come we use high fructose corn syrup here, but if you get a Mexican Coke, it has sugar in it? Or if you go to Europe, they don't use high fructose corn syrup. They use actual pure cane sugar. Well, we need to outlaw high fructose corn syrup. No, we need to get rid of the protectionist subsidies and trade barriers to sugar. We are protecting our sugar industry here. Domino Sugar here in America probably would not exist without these protectionist policies. So if you wonder why our health is so distorted, it's not because the evil capitalist pig corporations are choosing poison to kill their customers. They're almost forced to do so by ignorant economic policies done at the federal level. So this isn't just tariffs. This isn't just, okay, well, now your Apple Watch is going to cost 5% more. There are unforeseen and unheralded and even unnoticed secondary distortions that happen because of these tariffs. So I'm really not sure how we're going to feel about this in a year. I think this is something that will wind itself down in a few months, but what do you think? 800-288-9227. This is Martin in Frisco. You're on WBAP. Do you think this whole tariff thing is going to work out good?
Yes, actually I do in the end. Donald Trump tried this in 2016, and I don't think he knew exactly how to manage it as well. And it depends on what studies you look at. It did affect the GDP adversely, the inflation. But in 2019, inflation actually went down. And I think the bad thing in the end was it affected conservative voting in the end too adversely. But it's chess. It's not checkers. And if he manages this properly this time, I think it'll be a great thing for the United States and everybody, all the people of the United States, and also voting for conservatives as well in the end.
Yeah, and I think we're going to get some good answers on this pretty soon. I bet by the end of a week or two, we'll hear of a whole bunch of countries who have already changed their mind and capitulated. I'm just worried about the big dogs. What's China's reaction going to be to this? What's India's reaction? Mexico and Canada, what's your thoughts on some of these guys who are getting a really sweet deal out of us actually moving towards something more fair?
Well, last time he put tariffs up to 30 to 50% on all those same countries: aluminum, steel, Canada, Mexico, China, even India. And I think it cost India $240 billion. So, again, if he plays it right and they cooperate with us better than they did before, I think it'll be better for the whole the world. I mean, all countries involved.
I hear you. Well, that's the optimistic scenario that I'm hoping for. Thank you very much. That's Martin in Frisco. You already heard what I think. What do you think? 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. You'll hear what more of your neighbors think coming up next on The James Show. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Speaking of Blue Ribbon Roofing, we got some storms coming through. Do you see how it looks like the apocalypse out there right now? Well, we have a wave of storms coming in. We have another one coming in a couple days. We have another one coming in this weekend. And if you have a roof that's over 5 years old, you need to be a little more suspicious of that thing. If you're starting to see signs pop up in your neighborhood, that means some other people have had some roof issues, and you might have one too, especially if you already experienced some tough storms. Our neighbors over in Arlington and Pantego, and we had some reports of some damage up in the Wiley area. Also, Blue Ribbon Roofing had a bunch of calls to go down that the Houston corridor, Madisonville, Bryan College Station area. So if you even have the slightest hint that your roof may have an issue, you need to get on top of that now, because if you catch it early, it could be a quick, easy fix. If you let it go, it may just compound and have exponentially bigger problems. So here's the good news. The inspection doesn't cost anything. Another piece of good news, this is a local family business, been around for 31 years, and it started by John and Tish, a husband and wife team. Now their adult son Trevor is in the mix on the day-to-day operations, and they have given their word and lived up to it for 31 years. Don't just trust me and Casey and Bob. Go online, go to blueribbondfw.com and look at some of the Google reviews. There's hundreds of 5-star Google reviews. So if you're looking for the roofer to trust and you're looking for a free inspection just to give you that peace of mind, go to blueribbondfw.com. blueribbondfw.com. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Happy Liberation Day. I don't think this will be a holiday we celebrate next year for years to come, but it sure is an interesting topic now because Donald Trump, the day's finally here. He's been threatening tariffs, and there's been a few here and there that have been slapped on, but this is the biggest jump in tariffs that I think we've ever experienced in our lifetime. The question is, how will we feel about the shockwaves in a month, in 3 months, in 6 months, in a year? Will we look back on this and think, oh, that was a good idea, that worked out great? Or is this about to tank the economy and send us into a Great Depression? 800-288-9227. Let's ask Doug in Fort Worth. You're on WBAP. What do you think about the new tariffs?
Well, James, I think it's a great deal. I understand tariffs. You know, some people, I think the Democrats think it's like Chicken Little syndrome, the sky is falling. However, if you look at the supply side of economics, there is at least 3 to 6 months in the pipeline right now of all goods and services and products. So there's not a big worry until you get in maybe to the middle of the summer.
Yeah, see, so you're describing the hold your breath metaphor. Can our economy hold its breath longer than the Chinese, than the Indians, than all the people in Europe and Russia and everyone that we're battling in this little tariff tiff like Vietnam? Can we hold our breath longer? I think we can.
I believe so. I believe in, Trump he's a tactician. He knows how to work the things. So what will happen is that we have the propensity to have a lot more leverage in that respect than they do. So I'd say within a month or two, you'll see folding of some of these countries that just charge us exorbitant amounts of money. I mean, we've got the leverage there. He knows the cards. He knows where they are, and he'll play them.
All right. I'm getting to the point now where I'm going to ask, does anybody not think this is a good idea? Thank you very much, Doug, because I have nothing to argue with you on that. And it's fun to have people like reaffirm your opinion and whatnot. But also, anyone disagree? I don't want to just sit here, no, you're right. No, you're the best. No, you're so smart. But that's where we're at. Angie, Decatur, you're on WBAP. What do you think about the Trump tariffs?
Well, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to argue with that man either. Ditto
right.
to what he said. And I don't understand it all, but one thing I do know, I used to not really follow politics ever until, President Trump came into the picture, and he shed the light on all the stuff that, the guys who have been benefiting from what they've been doing to us, they liked it when we didn't pay attention. They liked it when, people just didn't care. Not that they didn't care. I think they just didn't think about it.
Oh,
and
of course not. Well, we didn't have to because the previous presidents would go to some other country and they would make some trade deal and they'd say this is a big win for both people. And we never dove into it. And we never were made aware that Vietnam has a 90% tariff on all of our imports, but we're only charging them 10, So this wasn't even something that was in the discussion before. And I'm so glad we're having something that feels kind of nerdy, nuanced. I mean, it's not boring, but it is kind of like black and white and not sexy. But I mean, this is what has been affecting our pocketbooks and our money and our business and creating all kinds of distortions. And like I mentioned with the sugar thing, ruining people's lives. And I think it's interesting to see where we'll be in 6 months to a year from now.
Well, and if you think about it, the alternative was what? Now we know. Are we going to just continue to let everybody take advantage of us like that? And that the alternative would be to just let things go the way they are.
Well, for all the people that want equality and fairness, that I think that's what we're working toward. And look, it makes sense that if you're playing golf against a 9-year-old boy, that you would give him a big fat handicap or let him tee off closer to the hole. But when they grow up, you got to start treating them equal, or now you're just screwing yourself.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you, Angie. Good stuff. I love all the amateur economists out there today. Y'all are doing good. You're not embarrassing yourself, making some good points. Anyone disagree? Brent Weatherford, you're on WBAP. Do you disagree?
James, no, I don't. But here's what I'd like to see. I wish Trump would put a big chart out there. You remember the flip charts with Perot and all that? Put something out there that shows each country
Whoa, he did that.
From them.
Whoa. He did that. He had like a 4 foot tall chart. I tried to describe it earlier. Maybe you missed it. But yeah, as soon as we went to commercial after that first little initial audio that we were joining him on, he did pull out a big chart that said like China and Vietnam and Bangladesh and Canada and all these other countries and what tariffs they had on us versus what we're going to put on them. And for a lot of them, you know, we say they're reciprocal. A lot of them were still pretty generous. Vietnam has a 90% tariff on all of our imports. Donald Trump, starting at midnight tonight, I think it was a 46%. I don't know why I didn't do 45 because that would be half. But we're going to start putting a 46% tariff on imports from Vietnam. And so, yeah, he did the chart. It's great. I know I can't visually show you because this is the radio, but if you go online.
Yeah. Well, I don't watch TV. I listen to you guys all day long. I just wish he would do that on all the countries so everybody, even the left, could look at it so they could see, okay, all we're trying to do is right the ship. You know, we're not trying to, turn over the Titanic or anything else. We're just showing you what we're doing. So you've already righted it, and I appreciate it, young man.
Well, I can't get credit for that. It was Donald Trump that knew in advance you would want to see a chart and had one ready. But if you want to see it, you can send me an email or a Facebook message. I'll send you to the chart if it's not already floating around your social media. All right, coming up at the end of the month, the last Saturday of April 26th, we're doing WeatherCon. It's brought to you by Blue Ribbon Roofing, and it's the thing where every year we go out and we give you a chance to meet Brad Barton and Hal J, and there's other people from WBAP there. But there's all kinds of demonstrations, some of them for the kids, like little science demonstrations for your kiddos, and then for the adult weather enthusiasts, they go to the little theater at the Frontiers of Flight Museum, and you get some presentations from National Weather Service people and storm hunters. Those guys are nuts. But they got great video and stuff to show. And there's all kinds of like exhibits and booths and stuff set up. So it's family friendly. It's absolutely free. Thank you to Blue Ribbon Roofing. And it's all happening April 26th. It's the Frontiers of Flight Museum. It's over by Love Field. Your phone knows where it's at, so just ask your phone. But it opens up at 9:30. It lasts until 1:30 p.m. Come on out. Say hi, meet myself, meet Brad Barton, our meteorologist. And I believe Fox 4, their meteorologist, Dan Henry, is going to be out there as well. And did I mention it's free? That's the big one. Free. And family friendly. I got 4 kids, and it's hard to find something for all of us to do together. That's one of them. 2025 WeatherCon from Blue Ribbon Roofing and WBAP. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Bob Lavelle from Home Marketing Services is here for you and your kids. Something I've noticed, Bob, is a lot of your stories from WBAP and James Show listeners is some parent who knocked on their kid's door and it's like, we need to get you out of the rent race and get you into a home.
I love those. My favorite one, I think, was the guy that was taking his son to lunch, and one of our spots came on, and the dad told him, you really need to call these guys. And he said, you got it, Dad, I will. And he said, no, you need to call them, and handed them the phone. And they actually called, came in the next day. That weekend, he picked his house, and the mother tried to talk him out of it because he was her baby, and he's only 21, and bless his heart, he shouldn't leave home yet. But, he went from renting or staying at home and paying the folks to being a homeowner at the ripe old age of 21. I love that.
Oh, I'm so jealous. He gets to start building equity at age 21. I only wish I'd gotten out of the rent race sooner, Bob. I shudder to think about all the money that I just threw away and gave to the landlord with nothing in return for all those years.
Well, you're in the news business, and whether it's good news, bad news, you strike me as the kind of guy that wants to know ahead of time what's going on. And unfortunately, a lot of the people out there, I'm going to say half, they're afraid to find out what's going on, because with our program, it's not about getting a house as much as it is finding out where you stand. And if they do that, if they pick up the phone, find out where they stand on qualifying what needs to be done, they're not going to get surprised down the line. Find out up front.
No, and I get it. I was scared before I bought my first home, and then I was super happy afterwards. And I think what I was really worried about was just someone telling me no. But that's the worst case scenario. So call Bob, 972-392-9595. And it's not just a no. It's here's what you got to do to get on the path to get into a home. 972-392-9595. Bob Lavelle has the classic website, blessyourheart.com, or 972-392-9595. Thanks again, Bob.
Thank you, James.
Well, hey there. Welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. There's some new Wi-Fi scams out there. I have my next guest, Eric Plam, who works for SEMO. They make Wi-Fi devices, so he may know a little bit more about it. Welcome to the James Show, Eric.
Thank you so much.
All right, so new Wi-Fi scams or just new twist on existing Wi-Fi scams?
That's fair. I think it might be just a new twist on some existing scams. And so one of the big threats out there in Wi-Fi is called a man-in-the-middle attack. And there are some variations, and this one sounds even worse, an evil twin attack. And I'd be happy to explain what that is.
Sounds sinister. Ooh.
Yeah. So what that is, let's imagine that you're taking your laptop, you go to your local cafe. Let's just call it Acme Cafe. And so you open your laptop and you figure, I'm going to drink my cappuccino, and at the same time, I'm going to get some work done. So you look for the name of the cafe in terms of your network. You say, oh, okay, this looks like Acme Cafe's network. You connect to it, and you get some internet access. But what you don't know is that this Wi-Fi access point might have been set up by a bad actor somewhere nearby. And they're actually delivering internet access to you, but at the same time, they're intercepting your data.
They're just filtering through. So it's like the old credit card skimmer at the gas station.
That's a great analogy.
So how do we protect ourselves against that, Eric?
Yeah, so there are a few things that you can do. So the first thing is, when you go to this, let's say, imaginary cafe, ask the staff, or if you look for a sign, and make sure that you're actually getting to the right access point, the right network name. And ideally, it's password protected, and you get the password from the proprietor of this public space also. That's one thing you can do. Another thing you can do is to get a VPN. So a VPN stands for Virtual Private Network, and it adds a layer of security on top of your web browsing session so that even if there was a man-in-the-middle attack, they wouldn't be able to intercept your data. So those are two things you can do. And by the way, getting a VPN is very simple. Just simply go to your search engine and type that in, and you'll come up with 5 or 10 really good options for getting a low-cost VPN.
Yeah, I get plenty of ads for VPNs in the videos that I watch. So does that mean I'm watching sketchy videos or what?
It could be.
Right.
It could be. Or maybe they just know you need a little bit of extra security.
Yeah, well, I watch a bunch of nerdy stuff. I think that has more to do with it.
That could be it. Yeah. And then there's another angle you could take here in ensuring the safety while you're online, and that is to set up your own Wi-Fi hotspot. So there's two really great ways to do that. One is you can turn most smartphones into a Wi-Fi access point. You just contact your carrier, and it's a feature that you can get. It usually costs a little bit extra per month, but that's a really safe way to remain connected. It can be a little costly, and it also burns your battery, but on the other hand, it's a safe way to connect.
Well, I see y'all, SEMO, is it SIMO or SEMO? SIMO? Y'all,
SEMO, yeah.
Yeah,
SEMO.
so y'all sell them, and this is something that we use, I don't know if it's your brand or whatnot, but we use these wireless hotspots when we do remotes and whatnot, because instead of, everyone piling onto my phone, we can all connect like the Comrex that connects back to the station and our laptops and our phones and so many other devices. If we had a TV out there, we could watch Netflix if we wanted to. So yeah, those are super helpful for us in the broadcast industry. But I don't know anybody who uses just a standalone Wi-Fi hotspot like that, and it just seems so convenient. I'm surprised it's not more popular.
Yeah, it's very popular for travelers too. So we offer a line of hotspots called Solis, SOLIS, and these are multi-carrier hotspots. So that means that you might be in a place, let's say somewhere in Texas, and get one carrier and not another. We can connect to the strongest tower. You could also take it on your summer vacation out to Hong Kong or Paris, and you want to stay connected with the family while you're traveling. So mobile hotspots can be very, very convenient and also safe.
Yeah, I do see them being used where I'm from, way out in the middle of nowhere. I actually live so far out that we didn't get cable. We barely get cell phone, but we didn't get internet served to us. So if you want to get broadband internet, something like this would be the only thing out for people in super rural scenarios. So all good stuff. I didn't even think about the security angle to it, but it all makes sense. Eric Plam from SEMO, thank you very much for your expertise, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you, too.
All right, fantastic. All right, coming up next, I got another guest here that's going to help us make a little more sense of the world. And this new generation now has NEETs. What's a NEET? No, not like from Monty Python. We're the knights who say meat. These are NEETs, and I'll explain it in just about 4 minutes on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. One thing I try and do is keep you updated on some of the latest trends and acronyms and, you know, what the kids are calling it these days. And Gen Zers are now NEETs. What's a NEET? I don't know. Let me ask my next guest, Scott Allen Curley's coming on. Scott, what is a NEET?
Man, well, first of all, thanks for having me again.
Hey, thanks for coming back on. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, well, the NEET. I forgot exactly what the acronym stood for, but it's the kids. Basically, they're not able to get jobs or keep them. At the end of the day, that's what the acronym means. Not employable, not able to stay employed. So they're not getting an education, they're not getting employed, they're not getting any kind of training, yes. and so they're unemployed and kind of not even pursuing it. Yeah, and you know, it's an interesting dynamic because that's not how the parents, which I'm one of those parents, that's not how I thought we raised the young people, and I don't want to blame it all on the young people, but I do think we as parents have to take some responsibility for that. That's a long conversation and probably a complicated one.
Well, I am so on board with that because you don't hear me griping about this generation. They just don't know what they're doing these days, because I feel like that's not even a criticism of the next generation. That's a criticism of what's my generation, the people raising them. And I think some of us have done a terrible job raising their kids. And I also find a lot of the times it's the people who are complaining the most, like, oh, I can't stand all these helicopter parents. Meanwhile, they don't let their kid go to the park without, supervision or ride a bicycle without a helmet. And I'm like, you're part of the problem.
Man, you're right. I mean, technology is a double-edged sword. First of all, we've moved so fast, so quickly, which is a wonderful thing, but it's also made us lazy, or it could. Now, I'm in my late 50s. I'm not sure how old you are, but we were raised we didn't have a choice, man. We had to go cut 2 or 3 yards before we could play on Saturday, and if you stayed in the house on a Saturday morning, you're going to get put to work.
I remember my neighbor seeing my kid mow the yard and thanking me. He's like, I just don't see that anymore these days, kids mowing the yard. I'm like, screw that. I'm putting him to work. He needs to get I'd make him get a job if he was a little bit older. But apparently there's a lot of parents out there who think their kid is beneath, or mowing the lawn is beneath them. I said that backwards.
I know what you meant. I think the problem is, and I think the heart was in the right place. And in our generation, our parents, they had it pretty tough. They were coming out of Vietnam, and before that, World War II, and so I believe that we just wanted our kids to have a better life and not have to go through the things that we saw our parents go through, per se. And I think maybe we overdid it. We didn't let them bump their heads enough. And, my background. I wouldn't, it's a long story in and of itself. I wouldn't want my kids to bust their head wide open like I did. But I think it's important to allow them to bump their heads a little bit and make the mistakes and let them work through it. And I think that's where we may have missed the mark as parents.
Well, Scott Allen Curley, here's the scary part. According to the studies here, the International Labor Organization, about 1/5 of people between 15 and 24 are NEETs. These are the people that they're not in education, they're not employed, they're not receiving training, they're just out of the job market and not even trying to get in or better themselves. I think 1 out of 5 is a path to destruction. It can't hold up. There has to be some sort of bounce back, is my thought, Scott.
I think we need to focus on identify the problem and operatively get into the solution. I think a big part of the issue is social media, and it's so fashionable now to be a quote-unquote influencer. And the problem that I see is that so many of the young people are trying to influence something that they don't even have the experience in influencing. Most of the time when you think being an influencer, you have to kind of know what you're talking about first.
Oh, my. Yeah. Well, here's the category that I'm thinking about when you say that. A 22-year-old life coach. That just makes me want to just eat a bullet, just end it. Like, what do you know? You haven't been married. You haven't had a kid. Yeah, you haven't bought a house. So, all right. So where do we find your work outside of WBAP, Scott?
You go to ScottAllenCurley.com. I was in prison for many years, a decade actually, and was homeless and on drugs, and found a way to not be a NEET. And so my goal, and I try to help other people and young people especially to see that you got to put in some work, man, and that there's no harm, there's no foul in actually in working and reaping the benefits of hard, honest work. Believe it or not, it means something. Still.
Well, Scott Allen Curley, thank you for your story there. But parents, if you don't want your kid to be a NEET, I think the solution is pretty simple. Don't let them be a NEET.
Good point.
All right.
Good point.
Scott Allen Curley, thank you very much, sir. All right, that's going to about do it for the James Show today. Sorry I didn't get into the movie subsidy stuff. Maybe I'll try and squeeze that in on the show tomorrow. But I really appreciate all the emails I've been getting in Facebook messages where people were chiming in on the tariffs and the economic stuff. I don't get to respond to all my emails. I promise I read every single email that comes into james@wbap.com. I don't respond to all of them because I'm kind of lazy, I guess. I mean, I could really, I don't know, maybe I have time to do it. Most days I can respond to all of them. I don't want to promise anything and then not deliver, because then you'll email in and be like, he lied. He didn't respond to all of them. But all the Facebook messages, keep them coming. Find me on X. Find me on Facebook. Find me on YouTube. We got all kinds of good stuff. And don't forget about the James Show podcast. If you need some more James Show action when I'm not on 2 to 5, the podcast is out there. So go find it. Your phone knows where it's at. All right. Thank you very much for hanging out. This has been the James Show. You need to stick around because Mark Levin is coming up next. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.